Hi everyone, and welcome to Poetryspective number 69, the 18th online edition, proudly brought to you from Lish Skec and still sponsored by Pride of our Footscray Community Bar. As you all know, I am Lish, your MC of the eve, and what you may not know is that we shall be returning to Pride of our Footscray in December. So this is the last fortnightly edition. However, we will have monthly gigs, so I will tell you a little bit more about that later. But first, tonight we have a wonderful lineup with our feature Dave Munro, and of course retrospective highlights from every retrospective online feature that we have had. So it is a real celebration, and let's get into it, shall we? To begin our open section this evening, I have selected two poems, and of course the first one is from Going Down Swinging edition 15, and the poem I have selected is written by Geordie Alberson, and the title is When the Woman Was a Girl. She arose in one body, stood on symmetrical feet. The world was measured in big toes and hands. Her hips spanned a bridge from herself to herself. Her spine was a silent throne. When the woman was a girl, she drew crosses for plats, called her shadow by name, and reaching towards the stars could touch, she lay among the nasturtiums at noon. The flowers were yellow, Jaffa orange red. She held the mustard pea under her tongue, stuck flat green leaves to her thighs with saliva, placed petals over her eyes. When the woman was a girl, she picked blackberries with her teeth. She watched time drift past in shades of blue and sang with the magpies at the sky. A bee stung her under the lemon tree, teetered and died. When she suddenly cried, a fish brushed her shin with its fins. When the woman was a girl, she walked and ran and flew and swam with all the other creatures. Flat on her back, in a nasturtium patch, she measured the world in big toes and hands, and it was very large. So the second poem that I have chosen for the open section is written by Shelton Lee from his book Nebuchadnezzar, and the poem is called All Travellers We. All travellers we, beveled by time and lucid as an artifact, we elope with words, stolen moments folded in the glory box. We abhor being still. The wind furls at hair, our passage through it indefensible. We are swinging through jazz with a bird parker stance, still as a solo. And now, the open section.
Let's act like we're teenagers and take the long way home, where a sunflower moon was in full bloom and tangled in my hair like cobwebs, where the crooning of yellow-eyed currawongs curled the sun into a sky of red light bulbs, like the ones at the club on the corner of Gertrude and Brunswick Street, where we, marmalade-voiced and shrieking, called honey streams of summer afternoons into cannabis-cradled rooms of phoebic splendour, where the blue of his eyes ran ink stains into my pillowcases when he left for home across bluer waters, where the houses smelled like springtime after birthdays and romantic gestures, where I slung words into a wattle-coloured sketchbook like Pollock's spirit had possessed my pen, where traffic cones gifted us tartan warmth under eggplant winter skies, where the starflowers of Billie Holiday's voice dripped from the lips of a girl with Waratah hair, where the soft thumping of plums rolling under kitchen benches echoed contented whispers of laughter, where I wanted to remember forever the way the blinds in his window pinstriped his skin against the night, how his brow met my fingertips like communion, where midnight lovers curled their velvet smiles around mine, where jazz cigarettes were smoked in sharehouse sheds to battle winter blues, where blue-tacked gum leaves swirled up bedroom walls and swung from chandeliers older than the bed's occupants, where beer foam painted the sides of poets' pint glasses, where a copper-coloured kitchen crowded rowdy party-goers into itself, with all the love that had been cooked into its walls and communal meals, where I buried a piece of my heart under every gum tree that had ever kept a kookaburra laughing, where modern-day ruby slippers clicked together, did nothing, since I was already home.
Hi Lish, hi everyone. I'm going to do a relatively new poem called Komboloi, which means worry beads. And see how we go. Waves lap and whisper, seagulls squawk, the constant pull of the sea. A chest heaves. Citrine drops of pressure and time, repetitive flow of the Komboloi, pulling thread, stillness in motion, an infinite horizon. Beads click, time ticks. Fragments of memory, transient storage in hippocampus, secrets now locked away, a sun long gone. At night, a melancholy roar, breeding moon, howling wind. In the distance, lights flicker. A cargo ship fades into the past. Beads click, time ticks. On terra firma, melpomene guts and scales fish, red mullet, sea urchins, sardines from Kaloni, where wildflowers grow. You wait, a bronze brickie with a full belly, a backgammon board ready. Mopeds whiz by, children chuckle, the sea breeze strokes your neck. Beads click, time ticks. Thank you. I'll see you soon in person, I hope. Cheers, bye.
I recall Uncle predicting Google, with Father at the table, and the smoke plume that smelled of marshmallow and made me jumpy, giddy, sleepy. The problem with people who say the problem with people is the problem with people, he said. I was 8, but I remember exactly the feeling of that, rolled in my earlobe like a tiny plastic ball-bearing maze. One of these days, machines will answer back so quick you won't have time to know that they're lying. He was a champion racer in the United States of America. Met Mr. Kennedy just days before his date with destiny. Mother had a yellowed picture from the paper. But then there was this fire. Uncle told me never to be frightened of Brezhnev and the bomb. The end won't come in brimstone, he said, switching the nightlight on. It'll be boring like a virus from a supermarket chicken or a deep jungle frog.
Hi again. Now it's time for our retrospective set, which of course is retrospective flashbacks, one from every feature that we have had during our online editions this year, 2020. we chose one piece from each person, so it's going to be great. Enjoy.
Explaining my depression to my mother. Mum, my depression is a shapeshifter. One day, it's as small as a firefly in the palm of a bear. The next, it's the bear. On those days, I play dead until the bear leaves me alone. I call the bad days the dark days. Mum says, try lighting candles. But when I see a candle, I see the flesh of a church, the flicker of a flame, sparks of a memory younger than noon. I am standing beside her open casket. It is the moment I learn every person I ever come to know will someday die. Besides, Mum, I'm not afraid of the dark. Perhaps that's part of the problem. Mum says, I thought the problem was that you can't get out of bed. I can't. Anxiety holds me a hostage inside of my house, inside of my head. Mum says, where did anxiety come from? Anxiety is the cousin visiting from out of town that depression felt obligated to invite to the party. Mum, I am the party, only I am a party I don't want to be at. Mum says, why don't you try going to actual parties? See your friends. Sure, I make plans, but I don't want to go. I make plans because I know I should want to go. I know sometimes I would have wanted to go. It's just not that fun having fun when you don't want to have fun, Mum. You see, Mum, each night Insomnia sweeps me up in his arms, dips me in the kitchen in the small glow of the stove light. Insomnia has this romantic way of making the moon feel like perfect company. Mum says, try counting sheep. But my mind can only count reasons to stay awake, so I go for walks, but my stuttering kneecaps clank like silver spoons held in strong arms with loose wrists. They ring in my ears like clumsy church bells, reminding me I am sleepwalking on an ocean of happiness that I cannot baptize myself in. Mum says, happy is a decision. But my happy is as hollow as a pin-pricked egg. My happy is a high fever that will break. Mum says I am so good at making something out of nothing and then flat out asks me if I am afraid of dying. No, Mum, I am afraid of living. Mum, I am lonely. I think I learnt that when Dad left, how to turn the anger into lonely, the lonely into busy. So when I say I've been super busy lately, I mean I've been falling asleep watching SportsCenter on the couch to avoid confronting the empty side of my bed. But my depression always drags me back to my bed until my bones are the forgotten fossils of a skeleton sunken city, my mouth a boneyard of teeth broken from biting down on themselves. The hollow auditorium of my chest swoons with echoes of a heartbeat. But I am just a careless tourist here. I will never truly know everywhere I have been. Mum still doesn't understand. Mum, can't you see that neither can I?
Way back when I was just a little bitty boy living in a box under the stairs in the corner of the basement of the house, half a block down the street from Jerry's bait shop. You know the place. Well, anyway, life was going swell and everything was just peachy! Except for the undeniable fact every single morning, my mum will make me a big old bowl of sauerkraut for breakfast. Oh, big bowl of sauerkraut! Every single morning it was driving me crazy. I said, Mum, what's up with all that sauerkraut? My dear sweet mother, she just looked at me like a cow looks at an oncoming train. And she leans down right next to me and she says, it's good for you! And then she tied me the wall, stuck a hot bowl full in my mouth and forced me nothing but sauerkraut till I was 26 and a half years old. That's when I swore someday I'll get out of that basement and travel to a magical faraway place where the sun is always shining and the air smells like warm root beer. And the towels are all so fluffy. And the Shriners and the Leopards play their ukuleles all day long. And anyone on the street will gladly shave your back for a nickel. Waka waka doo-doo, yeah. Well, it wasn't long until my dream came true. Because the very next day, a local radio station had a contest to see if you can correctly number the amount of molecules on Leonard Nimoy's butt. I was off by 3, but I still won the grand prize. A first-class one-way ticket to Albuquerque. Oh yeah, Albuquerque. You know, I've never been on a real aeroplane before, but I gotta tell you, it's really great. Except for I had to sit between two large Albanian women with excruciating body odour, and a little kid behind me kept throwing up all the time. The flight attendant ran out of Dr. Pepper and salted peanuts, and the in-flight movie was Biodome with Paulie Shaw. And oh yeah, 3 of the aeroplane engines burnt out, and we went into a tailspin and crashed into a hillside, and the plane exploded into a massive fireball. No, a giant fireball, and everyone died. Except for me. You know why? 'Cause I had a tray table up, and the seat and I always get these right. I had my tray table up, and my seat back in the full upright position, and my tray table up, and my seat back folded back in the upright position. Oh yeah. While I crawled from the twisted, burning wreckage, I crawled on my hands and knees for 3 full days, carrying my big leather suitcase and my garment bag and my tenor saxophone and my 12-inch bowling ball and my lucky glow-in-the-dark snorkel. Finally arrived at the world-famous Albuquerque Holiday Inn, where the towels are also fluffy and you can eat soup at the ashtrays if you wanna. It's okay, they're clean. Well, I checked into my room and I turned on the AC and I turned on the Spectrovision and I just about to eat that little chocolate on my pillow that I love so very, very much. But then I heard a knock at the door. Who is it? They're not saying anything. Who is it? Who is it? They're not answering. Well, so I finally go over and I open the door, and just as I suspected, a big fat man with a flock of seagulls haircut and only one nostril. I hate it when I'm right. So anyway, he bursts into the room and he grabs my lucky snorkel and I said, "Hey, that snorkel has just been like a snorkel to me." And I'm like, "Give it." He's like, "Make me." And I'm like, "Okay." So I grabbed his leg and he grabbed my esophagus and I bit off his ear and he chewed off my eyebrow and I took out his appendix and he gave me a colonic irrigation. Yeah, you better believe it. And somewhere in the middle of all that, the phone got knocked off the hook.
By Edward Lear, The Owl and the Pussycat. The owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a £5 note. The owl looked up to the stars above and sang to a small guitar. Oh lovely pussy, oh pussy my love, what a beautiful pussy you are, what a beautiful pussy you are. Pussy said to the owl, "You elegant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing. Oh, let us be married, for too long we've tarried, but what shall we do for a ring?" They sailed away for a year and a day to a land where the bong tree grows, and there in a wood a piggy-wig stood, with a ring at the end of his nose, with a ring at the end of his nose. "Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring?" said the piggy. "I will." So they took it away and were married next day by the turkey who lives on the hill. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a runcible spoon. And hand in hand on the edge of the sand, they danced by the light of the moon, They danced by the light of the moon.
At Lunchtime, a story of love by Roger McGough. When the bus stopped suddenly to avoid damaging a mother and child in the road, the young lady in the green hat sitting opposite was thrown across me, and not being one to miss an opportunity, I started to make love with all my body. At first she resisted, saying that it was too early in the morning and too soon after breakfast, and that anyway she found me repulsive. But when I explained that this being a nuclear age, the world was going to end at lunchtime, she took off her green hat, put her bus ticket in her pocket, and joined in the exercise. The bus people, and there were many of them, were shocked and surprised and amused and annoyed. But when the word got around that the world was coming to an end at lunchtime, they put their pride in their pockets with their bus tickets and made love one with the other. And even the bus conductor, being over, climbed into the cab and struck up some sort of relationship with the driver. That night on the bus coming home, we were all a little embarrassed, especially me, and the young lady in the green hat, and we all started to say in different ways how hasty and foolish we had been. But then, always having been a bit of a lad, I stood up and said it was a pity that the world didn't nearly end every lunchtime and that we could always pretend. And then it happened. Quick as a crash, we all changed partners, and soon the bus was aquiver, with white mothball bodies doing naughty things. And the next day, and every day, in every bus, in every street, in every town, in every country, people pretended that the world was coming to an end at lunchtime. It still hasn't, although, in a way, it has.
Some other dream I had. What did it involve? It's some other highway and some other car. Some other season, some other person, some other reason. Some other silence, some other collection of towns to be passed through, passed by, passed to. God knows we're in it, up to our eyeballs. Some other dream, some other city, some other specific night and the quality of light. It's a pale light in European winter, break your heart and break your head. Dreams and memories of moments, because I remember everything. I remember everything. Some other dream light, the long days of June and July, on the west coast of Scotland, the Isles of Skye and Iona. A specific night, washed hair with beer, a cigarette shirt, days of wine feet and coffee eyes, up to our eyeballs. Some other dream of some other city, some other specific night and the quality of light. Some other country, some other summer, some other lover, empty water, a wave on a beach and a silent night. The Fremantle sunset, or the back end of a bar stay, or a place without a postcode, of northern lights, forgotten, southern stars blurred. A dream we lean towards, touching all the way to the oncoming day. It's a koala spring evening, stare out to sea and see the ships at night, or some specific dream. A feeling of towns and unlocked gates, laughing at the languages and speaking another tongue, just because we can, because we feel like it, just because you want to. Some other specific dream of some other city, some other night, the quality of light. Semesters of hope. I've taken a bachelor's degree in non-bachelorhood, an undergrad's diploma in kissing and being kissed. I've just done a master's in unbelievability. And some other dream I have, what did that involve? A sky of absolute perfection, the perfect sandwich, the perfect beer, chilled glass. Lake Tahoe, or Glasgow, or that time in Hoi An. I've done it all, I've none regret. I've no reason, no silence of the night, laughing and arguments, each fueled by the other. Undecided the explosion of swearing, of some other dream I had. Extremes and their B-sides, the moment between sleeping and waking, dreaming and knowing. That's what we'll get, that's where we'll take it, because I remember everything. I remember Alaska in 2018. The temperature was indeed -30 degrees. It out in the snow, That was a long way from some other dream I had, some other specific sense of night, some other city, some other town, and the quality of light. That's good enough for me. That's good enough for me. And I'll take it. I remember everything. I remember everything. I remember everything.
A poem on a peach Melba hat for Hayden Snowy Clark. Well, I was walking down the street just the other day with the Snowdrop Kid, and we decided to drop into Y&J's to see Chloe, you know. She was going to get sold sometime soon, and we wanted to glance at her, just once more. Anyway, we'd barely poked our noses through the door when the manager's fronted up, his arms full spread as if recently crucified, and he said, "You two, out. You's barred. You's barred. You've already been barred forever before. Out." So I gives the Snowdrop Kid a wink and a nudge in the ribs, then shoves this bloke aside. "I'll call the cops," he yelled. "Go right ahead," we says, and chuffed on through to the bar. Well, we'd barely had a chance to glance at the azure eyes of Chloe when the Jacks, all dressed in blue, have come in, and just behind them, with triumphant grin, the manager pointing at us. So we've had to hit the toe, go out the other way real fast, and rather disgusted, we've had to catch a bus. And on the bus we saw this grande dame, all dressed in white linen, I think it was, and she was 80, maybe 85. As languid as a wreath of snow she sat, looking superb in her peach Melba hat. So I gave the kid the nod, sauntered down the aisle, propped opposite her, and proceeded to let her know just how wonderful she looked. To let her know that her lapis lazuli eyes were as deep as the sky, that her lips were as lewd as the sea, that the map of her face could only be explored by a searcher for dreams. And she was ever so sweet, with just a hint of a smile, a mere quirk at the edge of her mouth, and this idiot bus driver, in the midst of my delighted reveries, has turned to me and said, "You can't talk to an old lady like that." Her violet eyes shrank like anemones taken from rocks in the sea. Bewildered and startled, I began to explain that I had taken great pains to be polite to this grande demoiselle. "But you've offended her," yelled the conductress, swaying down the aisle, her obsidian eyes as dangerous as daggers. And from behind her came this pimple-faced youth, old enough to be my son, saying, "I'm a police cadet." "So fucking what?" I cocks my head and says, "Look, hit the toe, son, before somebody gets hurt. What's wrong with you lot anyway, when a bloke can't compliment a lady without copping all this crap?" And the wilting dame was left trembling with rage. Between the bus stops, the bus stopped. The Snowdrop Kid and I got off to avoid any blues, and so, aloof with a sadness and tired salutes, we doffed our imaginary caps to the fast disappearing peach Melba hat.
So this is a love poem for lonely prime numbers. 59 wakes up on the wrong side of the bed, realises all his hair is on one side of his head, takes just under a minute to work out it's because of the way he slept. He finds some clothes and gets dressed. He can't help but look in the mirror and be subtly impressed how he looks rough around the edges and yet casually messed, and he glances out the window. He sees the sight that he gets blessed with of 60 from across the street. Now 60 was beautiful, with perfectly trimmed cuticles, dressed in something suitable, never rude or crude at all, unimprovable, right on time as usual, more on cue than a snooker ball, but liked to play it super cool. 59 wanted to tell her that he knew her favourite flower. He thought of her every second, every minute, every hour, but he knew it wouldn't work. He'd never get the girl, because although she lived across the street, they came from different worlds. While 59 admires 60's perfectly round figure, 60 thought 59 was odd. One of his favourite films was 101 Dalmatians. She preferred the sequel. He romanticised the idea they were star-crossed lovers. They could overcome the odds and evens because they had each other, while she maintained the strict views imposed on her by her mother that separate could not be equal. And though at the time he felt stupid and dumb for trying to love a girl controlled by a stupid mum, he could have been comforted by the simple sum. Take 59 away from 60 and you're left with the one. Sure enough, 2 months of moping around, 61 days later, 61 was who he found. He had lost his keys and his parents were out, so one day after school he went into a house. As he noticed the slightly wonky numbers on the door, he wondered why he'd never introduced himself before. As she let him in, his jaw dropped in awe. 61 was like 60, but a little bit more. She had prettier eyes and an approachable smile, and like him, rough around the edges, casual style. And like him, everything was in disorganised piles. And like him, her mum didn't mind if friends stayed a while because she was like him, and he liked her. He reckoned she would like him if she knew he was like her, and it was different this time. I mean, this girl was wicked. So he plucked up the courage and asked for her digits. She said, I'm 61. He grinned and said, I'm 59. Today I've had a really nice time, so tomorrow, if you wanted, you could come over to mine. She said, sure. She loved talking to someone just as quirky. She agreed to this unofficial first date. In the end, he was only ready 1 minute early, but it didn't matter because she arrived 1 minute late. And from that moment on, there was non-stop chatter. How they both loved X Factor. How they had 2 factors. How that did not matter. Distinctiveness made them better. By the end of the night, they knew they were meant together. And one day she was talking about stock up 60. She noticed 59 looked a bit shifty. He blushed, told her of his crush. The best thing that never happened because it led to us. 61 was clever, see, not prone to jealousy. She looked him in the eyes and told him quite tenderly, you're 59, I'm 61. Together we combine to become twice what 60 could ever be. At this point, 59 had tears in his eyes, was so glad to have this one-of-a-kind girl in his life. He told her the very definition of being prime was that only with one and himself could his heart divide, and she was the one he wanted to give his heart to. She said she felt the same, and now she knew the films were half true. Because that wasn't real love. That love was just a sample. When it came to real love, they were a prime example.
On a distant shore, miles from land, stands the ebony totem on ebony soul, a dream in the midst of grey, on a far distant shore. Her bullet stood alone, while driftwood light half buried, warm shallow water, sweet shells, so the cockles shine. But their winding carcass stop shimmers as flies scoop up me, an empty way, dry your tears. Crisp flag squeaks, tall reeds make a circle of grey in a summer way around man. Don't you drown.
In February 1917, my grandfather wrote a letter to his aunt from the trenches in France. And in that letter, he describes how he and his mates, during the quieter moments, would quote C.J. Dennis to each other. And he actually does write, "Blast this flamin' war," in his letter. And the poem that particular line came out of is from the Moods of Ginger Mick, and I'd like to read that now. It's called War. He says to me, "What's all this flamin' war? The papers talks of nothing else but scraps. And what's old England got snake-headed for? And what's the strength of calling out our chaps?" He says to me, "'Struth, don't she rule the sea? What does she want with us?" he says to me. Old Ginger Mick is loading up his truck one morning in the market, feeling sore. He says to me, "Well, mate, I've done me luck." And Rose has asked him, "What about this war?" "I've got a tenner at the two-up school. The game is crook." And Rose is turning cool. He says to me, "How is it for a beer?" I tips him how I've told me wife Doreen that when I comes down to the market here, I dodges pubs and chucks the tipple clean. With her and kid alone up on the farm, she's full of fancies that I'll come to harm. "Henpecked," he says, and then, I dunno. I wouldn't mind if I was in your place. I've half a mind to give cold tea a go. It's no game pouring snake juice in your face, but lad, I have to. With the thirst I've got, I'm going over now to stop a pot." He goes across to find a pint of home and meets a pal and keeps another down. 10 minutes later, when he starts to roam back to the market with an ugly frown, he sprags a soldier bloke who's passing by, and he says he'd like to dot him in the eye. "Your sort," says Mick, "don't know your silly mind. They lead you like a sheep. It's time you woke. The heads is making piles out of your kind." "Get your head red," said the soldier bloke. "'Struth, he was willin', was that khaki chap. I had me work cut out to stop a scrap." And as the soldier fades across the street, Mick strikes a light and sits down on his truck and chews his fag, a sign his nerve is beat, and swears a bit and says he's done his luck. He grouches there 10 minutes, maybe more, then says quite sudden, "Blast the flamin' war." Just then, a motor car goes gliding by with 2 fat toffs behind 2 fat cigars. Mick twigs them from the corner of his eye. "I hope," he says, "the Huns don't get my cars. My diamonds too. Don't let me sleep a wink. 'Struth, I'd fight for that sort. I don't think." Then Mick gets up and starts another fag. Well," he says, "it's no affair of mine. If I don't work, they'll pinch me on the vag. But I'm not keen to fight so toffs can dine on pickled olives. Blast the flamin' war. I ain't got nothing worth fighting for. So long," he says, "I got to trade me stock. And when you hear I've got a soldier's job, I give you leave to say I've done me block and got a flock of weevils in me knob." And then, off-handed like, he asks me, "Say, what are they slinging soldiers for their pay?" I tells him, and he says to me, "So long. Some day this rabbit trade will get me beat." And Ginger Mick shoves through the market throng and gets his barrow out in the street. And as he goes, I hear his gentle roar, "Rabbi! Wild Rabbi! Blast the flamin' war!"
"12 o'clock. Along the reaches of the street, held in a lunar synthesis, whispering lunar incantations. Dissolve the flaws of memory and all its clear relations, its divisions and precisions. Every street lamp that I pass beats like a fatalistic drum. And through the spaces of the dark, midnight shakes the memory as a madman shakes a dead geranium. 1:30, the street lamp sputtered, the street lamp muttered, the street lamp said, "Regard that woman who hesitates towards you in the light of the door, which opens on her like a grin." You see the border of her dress is torn and stained with sand, and you see the corner of her eye twists like a crooked pin. The memory throws up high and dry a crowd of twisted things, a twisted branch upon the beach, eaten smooth and polished, as if the world gave up the secret of its skeleton. Stiff and white. A broken spring in a factory yard, rust that clings to the form that the string has left, hard and curled and ready to snap. 2:30, the street lamp said, "Remark the cat which flattens itself in the gutter, slips out its tongue, and devours a morsel of rancid butter." So the hand of the child, automatic, slipped out and pocketed a toy that was running along the quay. I could see nothing behind that child's eye. I have seen eyes in the street trying to peer through lighted shutters. And a crab, one afternoon in a pool, an old crab with barnacles on its back, gripping the end of a stick, which I held for him. 3:30, the lamp sputtered, the lamp muttered in the dark. The lamp hummed, "Regard the moon, la lune negare acune racune." She winks a feeble eye, she smiles into corners, she smooths the hair of the grass. The moon has lost her memory. A washed-out smallpox cracks her face. Her hand twists a paper rose that smells of dust and eau de cologne. She is alone, with all the old nocturnal smells that cross and cross across her brain. The reminiscence comes of sunless, dry geraniums, and dust in crevices, smells of chestnuts in the streets, and female smells in shuttered rooms, and cigarettes in corridors, and cocktail smells in bars. The lamp said, 4:00. Here is the number on the door. Memory. You have the key. The little lamp spreads a ring on the stair. Mount. The bed is open. The toothbrush hangs on the wall. Put your shoes at the door. Sleep. Prepare for life. The last twist of the knife.
Wasn't that fun? I really enjoyed watching the flashbacks just now. So many memories from so many wonderful poets giving fabulous retrospectives. Thank you so much. And now, more of the open section.
This one is called Letter Number 2. This gesture of slapping each pocket, searching for a stray piece of paper as the moment flies past, perfect like a shooting star, is like trying to put yourself out when you suddenly realise you're on fire. Because there you'll be, watching your daughter dancing in a square of sunlight. And what you'll remember, and here's the confounding part, is leaning out over a high parapet, an updraft lifting your hair, dancing in a square of sunlight, and every clap sending up crested pigeons like a magician, card after card appearing. Yes, the high ledge of the Sagrada Familia Cathedral, having taken the stairs, spiralling like the bones in an ear, and even here Antoni Gaudi has covered the stone with mosaic tiles. And if you lean out further to the thrilling tipping point, ledge grating against your pelvic bones, but it's okay because you're immortal, thin, 23 and travelling Europe. If you lean on that upswelling air and crane your neck to look under the curve of this corkscrewing spire, you will see that he's written you a secret message in mosaic that says, Gloria, Gloria, Gloria. Heavy-footed now, struck dumb, you watch her while she pirouettes, and in every crack of her small ecstatic hands you hear Gaudi, breaking tiles and teacups, the exultant humming of reassembly. Which is why I am writing this now, from fragments scrawled on an envelope that say wings and Sagrada Familia and remember leaning out. Better to just bring it to you, out of breath and hurrying to press this envelope into your hands before the braided filament of it fades. Listen. Every clap is like a wing beat, and God's architect once climbed out into thin air over the city to shout his praises to glory.
There was always that unspoken law. Never use the toilets at Footscray Station unless you're desperate. Today, I get off the train and can't hold it in. I see the dunny door and it's red now, a part of the new look. I open the door and it's gorgeous. The toilets are so clean, my inner voice thinks lavatories. It's a lavatory oasis, pungent with the fresh scent of pine and tropical rainforests, 4 pearly white sinks instead of a dirty trough with broken taps. Ah, they have cleaners now. The lavatories have seats now, and the acoustics in the room are fantastic. I want to sing to the funky new red grouting about just how happy I am and how much more room there seems to be. A lavatory TARDIS going on and on until you sink into those glossy, clean, giant mirrors. But I have been lingering in the Footscray lavatories for too long. I'm getting looks from the other lavatory users. I leave with a sense of disbelief. Did I dream those lavatories with their sparkly white floors and shiny silver hand dryers? Then I hear a woman yell, "Hurry the fuck up, would you, Margot? You take fucking forever on the dunnies."
Hello. Today I have another song of breakfast. This one is called Mango, and it's written in the theme of Begin Again, which is a lovely piece of music that's from Fallout New Vegas, for any of you Fallout fans out there. Do you recognize it? It's the that really groovy kind of sad downbeat one on the Mysterious broadcast. Fitting enough for a New Year's Day. Lurching into the kitchen at 11 a.m. Hardwood floors creaking just the way that I like 'em. Espresso coffee sputtering on the stove. Empty corners echo with the radio broadcast some numerical review of 2016, with posthumous performance of Bowie and Cohen, and a few precious rising stars. The mango's flesh is cold. I can't think of anything sweeter right now than a fork in the road. And the endless second guessing that has always dogged my footsteps. Today I feel greedy. Today I can feel the heat. Today I have the impression that the whole damn world is just humoring me. My smile is of sticky victory. 3 steps ahead of the dark cloud, I can smell a summer's storm. Those days were all too brief, the cloudy heat and hazy afternoons. Every sweet, nectary bite will resurrect my memory. Thank you very much for watching and listening to me. I really appreciate it. I have a favour to ask. Maybe you can see from here, I've got this tomato plant and it's just started flowering. I'm really proud of it. And my experience with growing plants indoors is very limited, so I'm issuing a call to the Poetryspective community. If any of you have any tips for growing plants or herbs or whatever indoors on a windowsill, please let me know, because I'm open to learning about this. And if you want to do it in the form of a poem or something, that'd be cool. Just any old way you like. I'm hoping to kind of expand my living space at some point and have a proper go at gardening, but for now it's just these 4 pots. And also an old pair of shoes full of soil in which I plan to plant mint. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much. Be good to yourselves.
And now it is time for our poetry feature, Mr. Dave Munro. And here is a little bit about the man himself. Dave Munro is a poet and statistician, a mix of interests that, just like salty caramel, combine surprisingly well. He once came second in a cake baking competition where he was the sole entrant. Rejection comes in many forms, though sometimes you still get to eat cake. His chapbook, Wearing My Father's Hat, is published by Melbourne Poets Union. So, this is Dave Munro.
Hi, I'm Dave, and thanks for having me here on what is hopefully the final virtual Poetryspective for a little while, which is exciting news. I'm recording this on land that was never ceded, the beautiful lands of the Tarongarong, and acknowledge the sovereignty of that land and the rightful holders. I'm going to read a few poems for you today, including a couple from my first book, Wearing My Father's Hat, which is very exciting, launched recently by the Melbourne Poets Union, so shout out to them as well for publishing this one. I think we'll start with an almost true story. I didn't get it at all. Which one was the mathematician? Was the tiger a metaphor? And why the boat? It's true, I can find stories confusing at the best of times, but I didn't get Life of Pi. No, not at all. Okay. Another maths one. I saw a butterfly dancing, or art is enough in a fractal world. As I soaked in Archimedes' bath, I watched a butterfly flap its fragile wings, stirring air onto a path to who knows where. The butterfly didn't care where its tiny wings went. The art of that moment, enough as it wafted steam from my bath outwards to join other eddies, unmeasured, unmindful of consequence. It's called In the Beginning, and it's talking about some wolf bones that are many, many thousands of years old that have got scratch marks like tally marks in the side. In the beginning. The first mathematician couldn't count. That subtle art lies in her future. Marks scratched on bones match the moon's dance from a time before numbers had names. Maths chapters were null sets, just like numbers themselves, countable unions of nothing. There we go. Once I lost a job because I thought the boss said we needed to break the Lexus. Turned out he didn't actually want his car torched. An expensive lesson in mondegreens and active listening. A modest win for linguistics, but not one of those win-win scenarios you hear about. Well, it's no use crying over spilt milk, even if there's no more because you forgot to add it to the shopping list. I'm not sure what's worth crying over, but it is worth considering what benchmark is being used. Sliced bread is now almost a century old, so it isn't much of a standard. Bees' knees have a pleasing alliteration, but sans le genou de habit, stored in a Parisian vault, were a mere shag on a rock, pondering its meaning. It's not true that when one door opens, another closes. Another opens. Oh, here's my clock. It's going to ding too, so maybe we'll just pause and let that roll through. Forgot to turn that one off. Beginner's mistake for those with grandfather clocks. Thank you, grandfather clock. All right. It's not true that when one door closes, another opens. I've kept careful notes, and the doors in my house do not appear to be connected. When one door shuts, the others don't move. Unless you slam the front door when the kitchen door is open, then it might shut too. But when one door shuts, another door shuts too is less useful as metaphor, though more accurate. Sliding door moments happen. Having tried to use the closed half, I can confidently say closed doors are not an effective way of access. Under the many worlds theory, I would have simultaneously managed to enter the house and not enter the house. This is different to the cat who is both out and in until you check. Although in my experience, the cat only wants to be in or out once you've sat down with a cup of tea. This contravenes the uncertainty principle, but it seems to be how he likes it. I can confirm the light in the fridge turns off when the door is shut. I had to take the milk out so there's room to get in. I forgot to return it later, which is why it was on the bench when I knocked it over. Every cloud has a silver lining. If so, clouds are worth 15% more than this time last year. With a recession looming, it is probably too late to get on board clouds, but feel free to stay long if you already have them. Clouds will be a good defensive play at this part of the cycle. I haven't considered where rain falls in Spain. It was some years ago, but it didn't rain at all when I was there. If it's anything like here, hills receive at least as much rain as the plain. I suspect, admittedly without proof, that song lyrics are not a reliable source of climate data. When someone claims everyone is talking, watching, going, it's not true. I did a survey. If at first you don't succeed, try another ending. If at first you don't succeed, at some point you do need to stop. But I'm not going to stop at this point. I'm going to pick up from a poem that I did during the Dirty 30. A lot of these poems started in the Dirty 30. I know a lot of people participate in that. It's a great event that happens in April. All right, this is called Mandala. Visit the liminal, a beach where rainforest meets ocean expanse. Search out a campfire, a place with voices singing, mere muscles pushing air through meat tubes, forming vibrating patterns of atoms. Watch the nearest star rise, photons from across the vacuum of the inner solar system reflecting on the water's surface. As you leave, experience something open to few inhabitants, an Earthrise, witness our fragile blue globe hanging in the vastness of space, alone. This is ordinary life. It's like my dad is talking. It's my imagination of his inner life. I'd already seen my mother descend into the red Victorian earth all those years ago. I don't remember it hurting this much. But then I was only 2, holding my aunt's calloused hand, not understanding the sombre quiet of the adults towering above me as we looked at the flower-strewn box below. Rick's casket is a rich cherry brown, the same colour as my mother's. Although I can't be sure after all these years, colours change in rain, or perhaps it was barely remembered tears that clouded my eyes, wet my face. It is so much easier to cry as a child. Back before adult cares are shouldered, back before you have to arrange things like groceries and funerals. There was no rain the day we buried my eldest son. Just a cold breeze and a colder chill deep inside that made it hard to speak or think or breathe. It nearly ended my marriage. No, let's be honest, I nearly ended our marriage. Despite our years, we had no words to fill the void he left after that midnight call arrived and took our firstborn from our lives. A friend saved us, saved me. Alice was never the same. Neither was I, but she thought deeper than I ever did. Carry on. That's what you do, what we did. I knew no other way. A mate pulled me from the pub with harsh words, tough love. This rough woman stripped me bare, stripped me down, left my inner parts laid out for me to start over. Alice never saw it that way. She only saw the love between me and my saviour. She didn't understand my need to learn to love again before I could begin to rebuild our life together. I could leave my story here, but it would leave the wrong impression. Certainly, it was love I sought, but what was offered, what was needed, was the intimacy of locker room mates, not the sweaty passion of bedroom lovers. Alice never saw it that way, but we hung on, found a new way to be together. We lasted another 20 years before I sat affront another coffin, weeping as I buried her too. I held my grandson's hand as I wept. In the end, all those funerals taught me something. There is no shame in tears, and on the other side may well lie joy. There's a little bit of joy to pick this up again. Pavlova for breakfast. I think my favourite day is the day after the day before Christmas. It's the one day when Pav for brekkie isn't frowned on. The one day I care about cricket. I love the build-up to that first ball, starting a game that continues for days after the day after the day before Christmas. There's a yacht race that starts, and if the wind is right, Sydney Harbour fills with spinnakers as they skip and tack for the heads and beyond. Out to race south for days after the day before Christmas. Perhaps that's the true promise of this magical day. It's not the end of the day before, but the beginning of the days after, of the day before Christmas. There we go. Yeah, we're doing all right. Okay, this is Handballs of Space. There's poetry on the wing or stepping on a tram. Christ, sometimes just getting out of bed and stumbling to the kitchen is a sublime act as you stagger into a new day, pants on, ready to join the game again. Who wrote the rules anyway? There's no winner in this game, just poetry if you're brave enough to make some art, or lucky enough to get a handball to space and a chance to make poetry on the wing. And this is the last piece I'll read before we cut to a piece that I read. It's my poem called Infinity, but Richard Mumford has done some really funky graphics over the top of it that I think you'll enjoy. So this will be the end of me. Thanks for having me. You know, it's been fabulous. So there's two little pieces to go. All right. Memories of Ada. All I know of my Uncle Norman is his name on a grave above the words 8 months. His story buried deep as his little bones, as lost as the letters my mother burned. She found them in a box, along with a red felt cloche. It's hard to believe my grandmother, dour Lutheran matron, ever wore such frivolity. Her joy long ground like meal between the gravestones of her son and husband. But in that cardboard oubliette was the hat and letters, evidence of a life so different to my mother's memory of Ada. The hat was banished to an op shop, the letters consigned to fire, where the ashes could be used to polish her stern memory. Thank you, and we'll catch you around.
Thank you, Dave Munro. I enjoyed that so much, and I am sure that our audience has enjoyed it as well. And audience, you can find Dave Munro's book through the Melbourne Poets Union, titled My Father's Hat. And I think that you should all join the Melbourne Poets Union and go to their events and support them in the same way that they have supported poets for many, many years. And now, more of the open section.
Hi, I'm Anne, and I'm going to read Satisfied by Lin-Manuel Miranda. A toast to the groom, to the groom, to the bride, to the bride. From your sister, Angelica, who is always by your side. To your union, to thy union, to the revolution, and the hope that you provide. May you always be satisfied. Rewind, 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 rewind. I remember that night I just might. I remember that night I just might. I remember that night I remember that. I remember that night I just might regret that night for the rest of my days. I remember those soldier boys tripping over themselves trying to win our praise. I remember that dreamlike candlelight like a dream that you can't quite place. But Alexander, I'll never forget the first time I saw your face. I have never been the same. Intelligent eyes in a hunger pang frame. And when you said hi, I forgot my dang name. Set my heart aflame, every part aflame. This is not a game. He said, you strike me as a woman who has never been satisfied. I said, I'm sure I don't know what you mean. You forget yourself. He said, you're like me. I'm never satisfied. I said, is that right? He said, I have never been satisfied. I said, my name is Angelica Schuyler. He said, Alexander Hamilton. I said, where's your family from? He said, unimportant. There's a million things I haven't done, but just you wait. Just you wait. So this is what it feels like to match with someone at your level. What the hell is the catch? It's the feeling of freedom, of seeing the light. It's Ben Franklin with a key and a kite. You see it, right? The conversation lasted 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. Everything they said in total agreement. It's a bit of a dream, it's a bit of a dance. A bit of a posture, it's a bit of a stance. He's a bit of a flirt, but I'm gonna give it a chance. I asked about his family. Did you see his answer? His hand started fidgeting. He looked askance. He's penniless. He's flying by the seat of his pants. Handsome, and boy does he know it. Peach fuzz, he can't even grow it. I want to take him far away from this place, and then I turn and see my sister's face, and she is helpless. And I know she is helpless, and her eyes are just helpless. And I realize 3 fundamental truths at the exact same time. I take his arm and say, he says, where are you taking me? I say, I'm about to change your life. He says, by all means, lead the way. Number 1, I'm a girl in a world in which my only job is to marry rich. My father has no sons, so I'm the one who has to social climb for one, because I'm the oldest and the wittiest. And the gossip in New York City is insidious, and Alexander is penniless. Ha! That doesn't mean I want him any less. I introduce him to my sister. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Elizabeth Schuyler, she says. He says, Schuyler? I say, my sister. Number 2. He's after me because I'm a Schuyler sister. That elevates his status. I'd have to be naive to set that aside. Maybe that is why I introduced him to Eliza. Now that's his bride. Nice going, Angelica. He was right. You'll never be satisfied. She says, thank you for your service. And he says, if it takes fighting a war for us to meet, it will have been worth it. I say, I'll leave you to it. Number 3. I know my sister like I know my own mind. You will never find anyone as trusting or as kind. If I tell her that I love him, she'd be silently resigned. She'd say, I'm fine, and he'd be mine. She'd be lying. But when I fantasize at night, it's Alexander's eyes, as I romanticize what might have been if I hadn't sized him up so quickly. At least my dear Eliza's, his wife. At least I keep his eyes in my life. To the groom, to the groom, to the bride, from your sister, Angelica, who is always by your side. To your union, to the revolution, and the hope that you provide. May you always be satisfied, satisfied. And I know she'll be happy as his bride, and I know he will never be satisfied. I will never be satisfied. Thank you.
Hello everyone. This poem by Yevgeny Yevtushenko is called Humour. Tsars, kings, emperors, sovereigns of all the earth have commanded many a parade, but they cannot command humour. When Aesop the tramp came visiting the palaces of eminent personages, ensconced in sleek comfort all day, they struck him as paupers. In houses where hypocrites have left the smear of their puny feet, there Hodja Nasser ed-Din with his jest swept clean all meanness like a board of chessmen. They tried to commission humour, But humour is not to be bought. They tried to murder humour, but humour thumbed his nose at them. It's hard to fight humour. They executed him time and again. His hacked off head was stuck at the point of a pike. But as soon as the mummers' pipes began their quipping tale, humour defiantly cried, "I'm back! I'm here!" and started to foot a dance. In an overcoat, shabby and short, with eyes cast down and a mask of repentance, he, a political criminal, now under arrest, walked to his execution. He appeared to submit in every way, accepting the life beyond, but of a sudden he wriggled out of his coat and, waving his hand, did a bolt. Humour was shoved into cells, but much good that did. Humour went straight through prison bars and walls of stone. Coughing from the lungs like any man from the ranks, he marched singing a popular ditty, rifle in hand, upon the Winter Palace. He's accustomed to frowning looks, but they do him no harm. And humour, at times with humour, glances at himself. He's ever present, nimble and quick. He'll slip through anything, through everyone. So, glory be to humour. He is a valiant man.
My child sings golden slumbers in her room. I tell her it's by the Beatles. I show her a picture of them. I tell her that 2 of them are dead and the other 2 are old men now. She first heard the song on a movie and we both agree it sounds much better when sung by a woman. I wish I still had my Abbey Road vinyl. My mother gave it to me for my 9th birthday, an unforgettable gesture. Times were simpler. Today, the president wondered aloud if injecting bleach could help cure the plague. What would John Lennon have made of that if only he wasn't shot dead in a land where owning a gun is an indiscriminate right, but a living wage isn't? To think that he was so happy when he finally got his green card. You need a lot more than love. Somewhere a black woman desperately scrubs out racist graffiti at the local playground till her fingers bleed because no one else will do it. We always knew that there would eventually be another plague, but it's still a shock, like the first cold winds of winter after a long summer. I see flashbacks of a little infant coughing uncontrollably, isolated in a negative pressure room with monitors. I try to tell people we wear masks to protect others and not ourselves from a lonely, suffocating illness. No one listens. I miss my lovers. To feel their flesh, to drink their kisses. My dreams are apocalyptic, prophesying war, a monstrous sense of longing in each and every one of them. Dreams evaporate when you can't see a future. College is too expensive, only the rich can get their teeth fixed. Don't get cancer, you'll end up living in your car. There is a lot of advice about how to keep working through chemo and none about what to do if you can't. Maybe we are not as good at getting on with things as our forefathers were. Outside, the silence is broken by emergency sirens, and inside, we are still comfortable. We have all the food we need for now.
And now, it is time to say goodbye. Goodbye! It is our last fortnightly Poetryspective event. I'm feeling quite emotional about this as well. But, the good news is that we shall be returning to Pride of Footscray. Hooray! And the first reading will be on December 8th. Same bat time, same bat channel, being Pride of Footscray Community Bar. And we actually will be keeping this going on a monthly basis, as well as recording each Poetryspective episode. So there are plenty of opportunities for you to still come to the Poetryspective channel and enjoy some very fine poetry. And our monthly reading will be poets from overseas and interstate, as well as some, open section locals. The first feature for that on December 22nd will be Sam Ferrante from America, so that's very, very exciting. And, of course, a surprise retrospective. And a surprise is always wonderful. Now, thank you again to Dave Munro for your wonderful set tonight. And I must say a really, really, really special thank you to Colin Clark. Without you, Colin, it would have been very difficult to keep this online version of Poetryspective going, and I truly, truly appreciate it. You have such skill, and you're such a great man. Welcome to the team. Up until I met you, I was doing this completely by myself. So to have someone to work with, such as yourself, is just amazing. And thank you to everybody for watching and contributing. It's been a ride and million going through COVID and still trying to keep our art alive. And I hope that Poetryspective has actually done that in some way, that you've enjoyed our episodes, and of course that you will come to our live gigs at Pride of Footscray Community Bar starting on December 8th. So, no more crying into Shakespeare or any other books. 'Tis time now to say goodbye, farewell, adieu, prosit, adios, etc., and so forth. It's, as I said, it's been swell. This is Lish signing off until December 22nd. And keep an eye out, check out the Poetryspective page and the group to find out details about our live feature returning to Pride of Footscray on December 8th. And nice knowing you. See you soon.